Let's begin by examining the most common and often most detrimental reaction to rejection. Picture this scenario. You've been met with disinterest, a clear signal that someone is pulling away. What's the immediate, almost uncontrollable urge that rises within you? For most, it's a desperate need for validation, an overwhelming impulse to somehow convince the other person of your worth, to bridge the growing chasm. This is precisely where so many falter. Instead of allowing reality to settle in, to accept the truth of the moment, we resist. We become relentless in our pursuit, sending follow-up messages that border on pleading, seeking elaborate explanations that rarely satisfy, engaging in behaviors that deep down we know only diminish our standing. It's akin to standing before a firmly closed door, a door that has been decisively shut, and instead of turning to explore other paths, other possibilities, you repeatedly pound on it, expecting it to miraculously swing open, if only you exert enough force, enough will. But it never will. When someone makes the choice to distance themselves, the natural, almost primal instinct is to demonstrate, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that their assessment is incorrect, that they are making a mistake, that you are, in fact, incredibly valuable. This is, in almost every instance, the most significant misstep. Humans, by their very nature, cherish what they perceive they might lose. We value what holds an element of scarcity, what isn't easily acquired. If someone has chosen to step back from your life, and you respond by clinging, by begging for reconsideration, by becoming persistently available, you are, in essence, confirming their decision. You are inadvertently validating their choice to move away. Think about it. What does it communicate about an individual who refuses to accept a no as a definitive answer? It signals a profound sense of desperation, a vulnerability that, far from being endearing, is almost universally unattractive. The ancient wisdom echoes this truth. As the Stoics taught, the obstacle itself is the way. If someone chooses not to have you in their life, instead of perceiving this as an insurmountable barrier, a personal slight that demands an exhaustive explanation or a reversal, consider it a clear, undeniable sign, a signal that this chapter is closing and it is time for you to pivot, to redefine your path, to move forward with grace and integrity. Herein lies the profound irony of human connection. The more tenaciously you try to hold on to someone who is pulling away, the faster their desire to escape intensifies. It's a fundamental principle, mirroring the experience of a salesperson who is overtly aggressive, overly insistent. Their intense pressure doesn't persuade, it repels, creating a sense of discomfort and an urgent desire to retreat. What if, instead of escalating your efforts, you chose a different path? What if, instead of insisting, you simply accepted the situation, not with resignation, but with a quiet dignity, and continued onward with your own life? A curious transformation begins to occur. Your perceived value, that subtle aura of desirability, paradoxically begins to rise. Consider the common phenomenon of being left on red in a message exchange. If your immediate response is to send another message, perhaps a hesitant, "Is everything okay?" you inadvertently project a sense of neediness, a dependency on their response. But what if you simply ceased communication? What if you truly disappeared from their digital landscape, not as a calculated game, but because you genuinely redirected your focus? The other person's mind, accustomed to your presence, to your availability, would inevitably begin to wonder, why the sudden silence? Why no persistence? This psychological phenomenon is known as reactance. When we perceive that our freedom, our control over a situation or a person is being diminished or removed, an innate urge arises to reclaim it. In simpler terms, when you consciously or unconsciously withdraw, the other person often experiences a surge of curiosity. This is where many individuals misinterpret the strategy. They assume that merely ignoring someone is sufficient to entice them back. But superficial absence, a feigned disinterest, is easily detected. The power of absence only functions when it is underpinned by a genuine, profound, internal shift. If you vanish physically, yet remain the same insecure, validation-seeking individual internally, the other person will perceive it, consciously or unconsciously, and the intended effect will dissipate. The truly effective strategy is remarkably simple, yet profoundly challenging. Cultivate silence and genuinely move forward with your life. This doesn't mean resorting to childish tactics like blocking them across all platforms, engaging in passive-aggressive social media posts, or attempting to provoke a reaction through thinly veiled displays of indifference. It means a genuine, unforced disappearance without elaborate explanations or dramatic farewells. And critically, this isn't about playing a game. It's about making a conscious choice because you genuinely have more significant, more enriching pursuits that demand your attention. This is the phase of authentic transformation. Dedicate this newfound emotional and mental space to yourself. Invest in your growth. Learn a new skill, one you've always dreamed of. Embrace new routines that invigorate your spirit. Expand your social circle, not as a replacement, but as an enrichment. When your primary focus shifts from the external validation of another person to the internal cultivation of your own well-being and growth, the transformation becomes inevitable. And here's the most intriguing aspect of this process. When you truly, genuinely move on, when the thought of their return ceases to be a central preoccupation, that is precisely when the probability of their reappearance paradoxically increases. But when this absence, this disengagement, is enacted with the explicit underlying intention of manipulating their return, it is felt, it is perceived, and it inevitably fails. Rejection, then, is not a tragedy. It is not a permanent indictment of your worth. It is a potent opportunity. Do not perceive it as a personal loss, but rather as an urgent, compassionate signal. A signal that it is time to evolve, to grow beyond what no longer serves you. When you internalize this understanding, the compulsive chase ceases. You transition from a state of anxious pursuit to a state of confident attraction. But a critical caveat must be offered. This process is not merely about passively waiting for some external outcome. The transformation must be real, deeply felt, and authentic. You cannot simply feign moving forward while clandestinely monitoring their social media, hoping for a sign, searching for an indication of their regret. The true key, the fulcrum upon which everything pivots, is reaching that profound internal state where you genuinely do not care about their return. Because when you arrive at that place of genuine indifference, of self-sufficiency, everything shifts. When you consciously choose to focus your energy on what is within your sphere of control, when you consciously cease expending precious mental and emotional energy on what is irrevocably beyond your influence, you not only reclaim your inherent dignity, but you also begin to become the kind of individual who will never again need to beg for attention, for validation, or for affection. Now let's explore the profound, often underestimated power of absence. Have you ever felt that insistent, almost compulsive urge after a rejection? The need to send just one more message, to seek a definitive explanation, to desperately try and demonstrate your undeniable worth? But here lies the profound irony. The more fervently you attempt to compel someone to recognize your value, the more rapidly that value, in their perception, diminishes. It's analogous to trying to sell water to someone who is not thirsty. No matter how eloquently you describe its purity, its refreshing qualities, no matter how insistently you present it, they simply do not desire it. And the more you persist, the more you unwittingly push them further away. When someone elects to withdraw, the most counterproductive response is to pursue them. Attraction, genuine and sustainable attraction, does not operate on the principle of insistence. It functions on the principle of scarcity, of perceived value, of something precious not being readily available. And this is precisely where the true transformative power of absence enters the equation. The human psyche is inherently wired to place a higher value on what is not easily accessible, on what requires effort or is in limited supply. This is a foundational principle of human psychology. When something is perpetually available, always within reach, its specialness, its unique appeal, subtly diminishes. Conversely, when something or someone recedes from our immediate presence, our minds register its absence as a significant event, shifting into a heightened state of awareness and curiosity. If you've ever experienced the sudden withdrawal of someone you previously took for granted, you undoubtedly recall that unsettling sensation. That person, who once seemed utterly unremarkable, suddenly begins to feel incredibly significant, intensely important. And it's not because they have suddenly undergone some radical transformation, it's precisely because they are no longer there. This is the precise dynamic that unfolds when you consciously and genuinely step back after a rejection. If you persist, if you plead, if you remain overtly available, you implicitly confirm that you lack other options, that your world revolves around their presence, that you are dependent on their decision to return. But if you withdraw gracefully, without drama, without accusatory remarks, without desperate attempts at negotiation or reconciliation, you create a profound void. This void, this unexpected silence, this sudden absence of your accustomed presence is what compels the other person to begin a process of self-questioning. Why have they stopped pursuing me? Why are they no longer present as before? Have they found something or someone better? This subtle stirring of doubt inexorably generates curiosity, and curiosity, in the intricate dance of human connection, is often the very first tentative step towards renewed interest or even desire. The Stoic philosophers, with their profound understanding of human nature, encapsulated this truth eloquently. It is not what happens to you but how you react to it that matters. If someone chooses to reject you and your immediate unforced reaction is to withdraw with a quiet, confident calm, you project an undeniable aura of security, of self-possession. And security, especially emotional security, is undeniably magnetic. However, the efficacy of this strategy is not solely contingent on physical absence. If you withdraw physically, but remain the same emotionally stagnant, internally struggling individual, the effect will inevitably dissipate. The true power of absence is not merely physical, it is profoundly mental and emotional. It is not about adopting a superficial tactic to ignore someone with the explicit hope that they will return. It is about a genuine, transformative self-focus, a deep dive into your own being to the point where their eventual return, or lack thereof, ceases to hold any significant emotional sway over you. Many individuals fail in this transformative process precisely because they approach distance, or no contact, as a strategic maneuver rather than a fundamental internal metamorphosis. They may physically remove themselves, but their minds remain tethered, compulsively checking social media, obsessively rereading old messages, relentlessly searching for a sign, an indication, a flicker of interest. And energy, the subtle current of your internal state, does not lie. If you remain internally obsessed, if your energy is still fixated on their return, it will be perceived, consciously or unconsciously. The profound power of absence only becomes truly effective when you authentically dedicate that precious time and space to your own growth, to your own evolution. Not by pretending to be well, but by genuinely becoming well. By consciously and consistently transforming your daily routines, by actively surrounding yourself with new inspiring individuals, by diligently developing new skills and passions that ignite your spirit. When you commit to this level of authentic self-improvement, something truly remarkable begins to unfold. The perception that others hold of you undergoes a profound shift precisely because you have fundamentally changed. The profound paradox is this: when you truly, authentically relinquish the expectation of someone's return, when your internal landscape shifts to a place of complete self-sufficiency, that is precisely when they begin, in their own time and on their own terms, to truly miss you. But here is the most crucial lesson, the ultimate purpose of this journey. It is never truly about recovering someone else. It is always fundamentally about recovering yourself. When you arrive at this profound realization, the initial sting of rejection dissolves. It ceases to be a problem, an obstacle, or a source of enduring pain, because you no longer require external validation from anyone, for any reason, to feel complete, to feel whole, to feel inherently worthy. And that, in itself, is the most powerful advantage you can ever possess. Let us now dissect the intricate mechanism of how absence reliably generates desire. Have you ever observed that curious phenomenon where, when someone who was once consistently attentive suddenly withdraws their attention, you find yourself inexplicably wanting it more? It's as if an internal alarm system activates within the brain. Alert! Something we once took for granted is no longer present. Desire, true, potent desire, is not born of ubiquitous presence. It springs forth from absence. When something is overly accessible, perpetually at our fingertips, its inherent value subtly diminishes, losing its unique luster. But when that same thing, or person, vanishes, when it becomes scarce, the brain automatically perceives it as more valuable, more desirable, precisely because it is no longer effortlessly available. It's that simple, that fundamental. This fundamental psychological principle precisely explains why persisting, why insisting, why pleading after a rejection is almost universally the worst possible strategy. When you attempt to convince someone of your incredible qualities, when you try to argue for your worth, when you relentlessly explain why they made a mistake in letting you go, the only outcome you reliably achieve is to solidify their conviction that their initial decision was correct. The Roman philosopher Seneca wisely observed, "Nothing is more worthy of admiration than a person who is not shaken by circumstances." Therefore, the true key is not to beg, not to pursue, but to do the precise opposite, to subtly yet powerfully communicate that their decision, while noted, holds no ultimate sway over your inner peace or your path forward. Consider a vivid analogy. Imagine you are at an auction. A particular item is presented and for a moment no one bids. What is your immediate, instinctive thought? Perhaps that it lacks significant value, that it isn't worth pursuing. But then, suddenly, multiple bidders begin to fiercely compete for it, raising the price, demonstrating its desirability. Automatically, even unconsciously, that item suddenly appears far more valuable, more coveted. The same dynamic applies, with remarkable precision, to human perception and connection. When you demonstrate, through your actions and your demeanor, that you are not an easily acquired option, that your emotional availability is not boundless, your perceived value in the eyes of others skyrockets. Now, this crucial point does not advocate for feigning indifference merely as a manipulative tactic. The core, the authentic key, lies in genuinely arriving at a point where you truly cease to care in that way. This is precisely where the profound wisdom of Stoicism offers its unparalleled guidance. The vast majority of people navigate their emotional lives, their self-worth, and their reactions based almost entirely on the perceived opinions and actions of others. If someone ignores them, they scramble for ways to reclaim attention. If someone rejects them, they feel an almost unbearable compulsion to prove their intrinsic value. But this is a perilous path, a life lived under the constant fluctuating control of external forces, subject to the whims and perceptions of others. A true Stoic, however, understands that authentic power, enduring freedom, resides entirely in self-mastery, in controlling one's own internal state and responses, not in attempting to control the external world or the decisions of others. When someone rejects you, you are presented with two distinct, profoundly different paths. Option 1, attempt to win them back, thereby ceding even more power over your emotional well-being to them. Option 2, consciously choose to move forward, investing your energy back into your own life, thereby reclaiming your innate power. The disparity between these two choices is monumental. In the first scenario, your happiness, your sense of completeness, becomes entirely dependent on the validation and decision of another individual. In the second, you make an unwavering declaration that your well-being, your intrinsic worth, is not and never will be at the mercy of anyone else's opinion or presence. It is truly fascinating how this dynamic unfolds. When you genuinely become unavailable, not as a performance but as a result of your authentic shift in focus, the other person's mind inevitably begins to question their initial decision. Why? Because absence, true intentional absence, creates doubt. It introduces a subtle, persistent question mark into their perception of you. And doubt, that unsettling internal questioning is often the very first critical step towards the resurgence of interest and ultimately desire. But heed this vital warning. If you undertake this journey of self-focus and withdrawal with the explicit, underlying expectation of a specific outcome, namely their return, it will be perceived. Your energy will betray your true intentions, and it will not work. This is not about employing a sophisticated psychological tactic to manipulate someone into returning. It is about immersing yourself so completely in your own growth, in your own flourishing, in your own life, that when or if that person eventually reappears, you are the one in a position of complete emotional sovereignty. You are the one who gets to decide, from a place of clarity and strength, whether their presence still holds any genuine, meaningful place in the vibrant, fulfilling life you have so meticulously built for yourself. And when you reach that profound juncture, something truly extraordinary occurs. Their answer, their decision, their presence or absence ceases to matter in the way it once did. Because by then, you will have unequivocally discovered that you never, not for a single moment, needed anyone else to feel inherently complete, entirely worthy, and deeply content. Let us now dismantle a common misconception. Rejection itself is rarely the fundamental problem. It is your perception of it that holds the true power to either imprison or liberate you. So many people mistakenly believe that rejection is a definitive, unalterable sentence, an absolute declaration that shouts, "You are forever unworthy." But in its deepest truth, rejection is merely a reflection of how another person perceives you at a particular moment in time. And perceptions, fluid and transient as they are perpetually capable of change. Imagine holding a crumpled, seemingly discarded banknote found lying on the ground. Initially, your mind might dismiss it as mere trash, worthless. But then, imagine if someone else casually picks it up, smooths it out, and uses it to purchase something of value. Suddenly, a jolt of recognition. You remember that it still possesses inherent value, regardless of its temporary crumpled state or your initial perception. This is precisely how attraction, and indeed human value, operates. People, perhaps unconsciously, tend to value what they perceive others value. And if you, at your core, do not hold yourself in high esteem, if you do not recognize your own intrinsic worth, it is incredibly challenging for anyone else to do so consistently. When someone rejects you, you are again presented with a clear dichotomy of choices. Option 1. Remain ensnared in a debilitating cycle of self-pity, endlessly dissecting past interactions, meticulously rereading old messages, obsessively analyzing every minute detail, relentlessly searching for an explanation that will never truly arrive, a resolution that lies outside your control. The vast majority, sadly, choose this path, becoming entrapped in a vortex of self-doubt and inaction. But there is a second, far more empowering option. Elevate your own intrinsic value, not for their sake, but for your own, to such an undeniable degree that, should they ever reconsider, they would be compelled to profoundly question their initial decision. Here is a brutal yet liberating truth. No one truly rejects something that they genuinely perceive as inherently valuable. If you wish to fundamentally alter the perception someone holds of you, cease the futile efforts of trying to demonstrate your worth. Instead, begin to live with undeniable worth. The distinction between these two approaches is vast, a chasm between desperation and quiet power. The Stoic Epictetus offered this profound guidance. Do not explain your philosophy, embody it, live it. When you relentlessly attempt to verbally convince someone of your virtues, of your exceptional qualities, of your inherent greatness, the only message you reliably transmit is one of deep-seated insecurity. Conversely, when you simply, authentically, and consistently focus your energy on your own growth, on your own improvement, on becoming the most expansive version of yourself, the perception that others hold of you shifts naturally, effortlessly, without any need for your active intervention. And here lies the ultimate paradox of this journey. If you genuinely evolve, if you undergo a profound internal transformation, By the time that person eventually recognizes the depth of your change, it is entirely possible that their presence, their opinion, their return will have become entirely irrelevant to you. This entire process is not about enacting a subtle form of revenge. It is not about playing manipulative psychological games with another human being's emotions. It is, in its purest essence, about committing to the one thing you genuinely and reliably control, becoming an individual who, from the deepest core of their being, no longer requires external validation from anyone, for any reason. The fundamental challenge, the subtle sabotage many encounter, is attempting this transformative process with the wrong underlying intention. They begin their journey of self-improvement, hitting the gym, devouring books, cultivating new interests, attempting to project an image of success, solely with the hidden agenda of impressing someone else, of eliciting a specific reaction. In the depths of their being, they remain tethered, waiting, hoping for a message, a subtle gesture, any indication that the other person is noticing their meticulously crafted transformation. But again, the subtle energy, the unconscious communication, does not deceive. If your genuine, profound growth is merely a strategic maneuver to reclaim someone, that individual will intuitively perceive it, and its effectiveness will be severely diminished, if not entirely negated. The true, lasting, and impactful change unfolds only when you embark on this journey for yourself. For your own fulfillment, for your own expansion, for your own inherent joy, and for no one else. Reflect for a moment on anyone you have ever perceived as truly captivating, profoundly desirable, or seemingly out of your league. What common thread did they possess? Almost universally, their lives did not revolve around the ceaseless pursuit of external validation. They emanated an aura of intrinsic self-sufficiency. They were desirable precisely because they cultivated options, not just romantic ones, but options in their passions, their purpose, their pursuits. They were not defined by their need for approval. When you internalize this profound understanding, the compulsive habit of scanning for signals, of anxiously awaiting messages, of meticulously dissecting every fleeting glance, simply dissolves. In its place, you transmute. You become organically and powerfully the kind of person who will never again need to chase, to pursue, or to convince anyone of your worth. And here is the culminating, liberating lesson. When your inherent value is not merely an outward performance, but an internal lived reality, people instinctively and effortlessly perceive it. You will not need to articulate it, to declare it, or to prove it. Because true transformation, true worth, is not about what you meticulously appear to be. It is about the profound, undeniable truth of what you genuinely become. Let's now unravel the intricate paradox of detachment. Why is it that when someone withdraws their attention, when they seem utterly indifferent to your presence, you often feel an even greater, almost agonizing desire for their acknowledgement? It's illogical, infuriating even, but it is precisely how the complex tapestry of the human mind is woven. What we perceive to be slipping away, what feels lost, what is no longer guaranteed, we immediately, instinctively, and fiercely value more. The pervasive error many commit is the deeply ingrained belief that to reclaim someone's interest, they must relentlessly demonstrate their unwavering interest, maintain a constant, undeniable presence, insist subtly or overtly on their availability. But here, once more, lies the profound paradox. What you desperately pursue often eludes your grasp. It's akin to trying to catch a nimble fish with your bare hands in clear water. The harder you clench your fist, the more forcefully you attempt to seize it, the more the water slips through your fingers, and the fish, sensing the struggle, dart effortlessly away. But if you simply allow your hand to remain open, relaxed, in the gentle flow, you might find it gravitating effortlessly closer, even resting within your reach. The Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius captured this essence with piercing clarity. If you are pained by any external thing, it is not the thing itself that troubles you, but your own judgment about it. And it is in your power to wipe out this judgment now. And in this profound observation lies the ultimate key. Detachment is not merely a psychological trick. It is one of the most powerful, most authentic forces in attraction. Not because it's a manipulative strategy, but because it powerfully demonstrates something remarkably rare and profoundly magnetic: complete and utter self-control, an unshakable inner sovereignty. When you encounter rejection, the natural, deeply ingrained human reaction is to desperately seek understanding, to question why, to search for closure, to demand answers. But at its core, this relentless quest for explanations is often nothing more than a carefully constructed excuse, a comforting illusion designed to avoid the stark, uncomfortable reality of acceptance. The antithesis of true detachment is not genuine love. It is, quite simply, obsession. If you experience an overwhelming, debilitating feeling that you cannot possibly thrive, cannot genuinely be well, in the absence of that specific person, then what you are experiencing is not love in its purest form. It is a profound, consuming dependency. And dependency, whether emotional, psychological, or otherwise, is a force that, almost without exception, repels rather than attracts. Reflect on the most genuinely attractive individuals you have encountered throughout your life. What shared quality do they possess? They are not in any discernible way begging for attention. They are not waiting with bated breath for external validation to define their worth. They are desired precisely because they are inherently self-sufficient. They exude an unspoken confidence that their happiness, their fulfillment, their very essence is not and never will be contingent upon the presence or approval of anyone else. True detachment does not equate to being emotionally cold or superficially indifferent. It is not about adopting a disingenuous facade that screams, "I don't care," while your internal world churns with anxiety. It is about a profound internal journey that culminates in reaching a point where their actions, their presence, their absence truly do not affect your inner equilibrium. And this is precisely where many stumble, where authenticity is sacrificed for performance. They attempt to project an image of having fully moved on, of thriving independently, but in the deepest recesses of their being, they remain hyper-vigilant, perpetually anticipating a signal, a message, any fleeting indication that the other person still holds them in their thoughts. But again, the energetic resonance of your true emotional state is unmistakable. If you remain in a state of passive waiting, it will be perceived, it will undermine your efforts. The only authentic, enduring path forward is to immerse yourself so completely in your own self-development, to cultivate your own inner world so richly, to expand your own horizons so broadly that by the time that person eventually recognizes what they truly relinquished, what they allowed to slip away, their potential return will no longer hold any genuine, compelling interest for you. This is the very crucible of true transformation, because genuine detachment is not a fleeting game. It is not a temporary strategy. It is the profound, liberating result of an unshakable internal realization that you never, not for a single moment, needed anything external, any external person, any external validation to feel complete, to feel whole, to feel utterly magnificent. The profound irony that underpins this entire journey is this: when you truly, authentically, and unequivocally cease to need someone, that is precisely when you become most intensely attractive. Because in the moment you release the relentless pursuit of external validation, you project an undeniable, powerful aura of security, of self-possession, of genuine contentment. And security, especially emotional security, is the most potent magnet in the human experience. When you truly grasp this fundamental truth, the incessant, unproductive questions fade away. The compulsive analysis of every minute detail, every past interaction, every unspoken word simply ceases. The anxious waiting for external answers, for external signals, dissolves. Because you, and only you, are now the one who holds the power. You are the one who decides from a place of unshakable inner strength and clarity who you allow into the sacred space of your life, and on what terms. And when you arrive at this profound, self-realized state, An even deeper, more powerful truth reveals itself. The problem was never, not truly, the rejection itself. The problem was always the deeply ingrained belief that you needed someone else, anyone else, to feel inherently valuable, to feel complete, to feel truly worthy. Here is the grand, liberating lesson that encapsulates this entire journey. You do not win when someone returns to you. The ultimate, most profound victory occurs when you arrive at a place of such unwavering self-sufficiency and inner peace that it genuinely no longer matters to you whether they return or not. Because when you release the desperate search for external validation, when you reclaim your inherent, undeniable worth, you simultaneously recover the only true power that ever existed, your power to define yourself, to direct your own life, and to create a reality of profound contentment entirely on your own terms. This journey, from the sting of rejection to the triumph of self-reclamation, is the most vital path you will ever embark upon. It is a path that, though often born of pain, leads inevitably to an unshakable sense of self-worth and an attraction that stems not from need, but from the radiant authenticity of your own complete being. Remember this, always. When you understand your own immeasurable value, when you embody it with every fiber of your being, you become the sovereign architect of your own life, the one who truly decides who is worthy of entering your extraordinary world.